He had been running his whole life, chasing a victory he believed would change everything. But in the very last step before the finish line, something changed forever. The cheers disappeared. Only the sound of his heartbeat remained. The bright stadium turned into endless darkness, and a strange shadow began following his every step. This was no ordinary race. It was a battle between him and the shadow within his own soul. Because the finish line did not lead to glory. It led to the truth he had never dared to face. The last step of victory. Would it be the beginning of fear? Or the first moment of true freedom? The evening sunlight shone across the track, turning it gold. The sound of the runner's breathing echoed inside his head. Sweat ran down his temples. His heart pounded as if it would burst from his chest. The finish line was right ahead. Only a few steps remained. But his legs grew heavy, as if burdened by great stones. The cheering from the crowd became a strange, distorted echo, as though coming from far, far away. He tried to take a deep breath. The air was thick with the scent of dust and sweat. His body trembled, but his spirit refused to surrender. Each step felt like crossing the edge of pain. Then suddenly, a sound rose behind him. The rapid rhythm of footsteps hitting the ground. He glanced back for a moment, and saw a shadow racing toward him. The blood in his veins turned cold. Fear spread through his body. He could not tell if it was a rival, or something that did not belong on this track. The sky darkened, though the sun had not yet set. A faint laugh echoed from behind him. Chilling, as if it came from within his own mind. His muscles locked tight, his body frozen. He stopped running, and the footsteps stopped too. As if his own shadow had come to life. The world around him fell silent. The stadium lights flickered rapidly. The faces in the stands began to blur. They seemed to melt away, leaving only hundreds of eyes staring straight at him. His heart pounded harder than ever. But now not from effort. From pure fear. Something stood before him. Something that was not the victory he had imagined. He lifted his foot again. The last step of victory. He lifted his foot again. The last step of victory. But as soon as it touched the ground, the earth beneath him felt wrong. Soft, uneven, alive. His balance faltered. He stumbled forward, hands clutching the air for something that was not there. The finish line shimmered before his eyes, the white stripe glowing faintly in the dusk. But with each blink, it seemed to move further away. The cheers had vanished. The sound of the crowd was gone. All that remained was the whisper of the wind, and the faint thud of his heartbeat, echoing unnaturally loud in his ears. He turned around slowly. The stadium that had moments ago been full of light and noise was now a hollow shell of itself. The seats stood empty, and the field stretched endlessly into a gray, shapeless horizon. His mouth was dry. He tried to call out, perhaps for help, perhaps to break the silence. But his voice came out as a broken whisper. Hello. No answer. Only the echo of his own voice, bouncing back with a slight delay, distorted. As if someone, or something, were mimicking him. A shiver ran down his spine. He rubbed his arms, trying to shake off the strange chill that clung to him. The air had grown heavy. It pressed against his chest, making every breath a struggle. He took a step backward. The track beneath his feet rippled like water. For a brief moment, he saw his own reflection. But the man in the reflection did not move the same way he did. The reflection smiled when he did not. He froze. His pulse hammered in his throat. The reflection began to rise from the surface. Its shape, dark and fluid, forming into a man-shaped shadow with glowing eyes. It spoke with his own voice. But slower, deeper. Why are you still running? He staggered backward, heart pounding in terror. I have to finish, he said, though he did not know why anymore. The shadow tilted its head, its mouth stretching into a grin that looked too wide to be human. Finish, it whispered. There is no finish. There never was. The words sliced through him like cold steel. He looked toward the horizon again, and saw that the finish line had vanished completely. Only an endless, misty plain stretched out before him. He fell to his knees. The ground pulsed beneath his palms like a beating heart. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Only the sound of that laughter returned. Soft, mocking, echoing from every direction. He shut his eyes tight. The memory of the race flooded back. The gunshot, the roar of the crowd, the promise he had made to himself, that this victory would change everything. He had trained for years. He had lost sleep, friends, even parts of himself. All for this one final race. But now, this place, this emptiness. It felt like a cruel trick. Like the world had folded in on itself just to watch him break. He forced himself to stand. The shadow still hovered nearby, watching, unmoving. Its eyes glowed brighter, like twin embers in the dark. You ran from them, the shadow said softly. From the truth, from the pain, from what you did. He shook his head violently. No, I ran to prove myself. I ran for redemption. The shadow stepped closer. You ran to escape. The air grew colder. He could see his breath now, white in the dim light. The track began to crack beneath his feet. Thin fractures spreading like veins through the surface. From those cracks, black mist seeped out, swirling around him. It carried whispers, hundreds of voices, overlapping, broken, familiar. He recognized some of them. His coach, his mother, a teammate he had not seen since the accident. He tried to back away. But the mist clung to him like invisible hands. Pulling, tugging, whispering his name. He screamed, "Stop!" The sound echoed endlessly into the emptiness. When he looked down, he saw that his feet were sinking into the track. The surface was no longer solid. It was soft, like tar, thick and suffocating. He struggled, pulling with all his strength. But the more he fought, the deeper he sank. The shadow watched in silence, its grin fading into something like pity. Victory was never about the finish line, it said. It was about what you left behind. He stopped struggling. His breathing slowed. The realization hit him like lightning. The accident. The teammate. The last race before this one. The one that had ended in tragedy. The memory he had buried deep within his mind. He remembered the rain-slicked track. The desperate sprint. The sharp elbow that sent another runner falling. The sickening thud when his body hit the ground. And the silence afterward. He had kept running. He had won. But the victory had never felt like one. Now, standing in this hollow world, he finally understood. The shadow extended its hand toward him. Face it, it said quietly. Only then can you take the last step. He hesitated. His body trembled. The mist swirled tighter around him, pressing against his skin, whispering, begging. He reached out slowly, his hand shaking as it moved closer to the shadows. When their fingers touched, a surge of light exploded around him. Blinding, searing, every sound disappeared. For a moment, there was nothing, no pain, no fear, no world. Then he opened his eyes. He was back on the track. The crowd was roaring again. The sun burned brightly overhead. And the finish line was there, waiting. But everything felt different. The air was lighter. The weight on his chest was gone. He could see the faces in the stands clearly now, real faces, smiling, cheering. He took one breath, then another, and as he began to run, he felt no fear, no burden, no shadow behind him. Only the wind, the earth, and his heartbeat. Steady, alive, free. Each stride carried him closer to something more than victory. It was forgiveness. It was truth. It was peace. As his foot touched the white line, the world seemed to pause. A perfect moment suspended in time. And for the first time, he understood what it truly meant. To win. He stood there at the finish line, motionless, breathing in the silence that followed the roar. It was not the crowd that he heard now, it was the rhythm of his own heart, calm and certain. The sunlight spilled across his face, warm and forgiving, as if the world itself had been waiting for him to arrive at this very moment. He looked back down the track. There was no shadow following him anymore. No whisper, no fear, only the long, golden path that led him here. A reminder of every mistake, every loss, and every truth he had tried to outrun. Tears filled his eyes, not from pain, but from release. He finally understood that victory had never been about speed or strength. It was about courage, the courage to face what he had hidden from for so long. The courage to forgive himself. A gentle breeze passed through the stadium, carrying with it the faint echo of laughter. Not the haunting kind, but the laughter of his old teammate, light and distant, like a memory returning home. He smiled. He knelt down and touched the white line beneath his feet. It no longer felt like a boundary. It felt like a bridge between the man he used to be and the man he had finally become. He whispered softly, "Thank you." Not to anyone in particular, but to life itself, for giving him one last race. One last chance to understand. As the wind swept through the field, the stadium lights flickered one last time. And then, slowly, everything faded into the warmth of sunset. The world was quiet again. But inside him, there was peace. Deep, endless, and true. He took a final look at the horizon, smiled faintly, and walked away from the track. Not as a runner chasing victory, but as a man who had finally found it. The last step had not been a step toward the finish line. It had been a step toward freedom. And that was the real victory. Dash dash dash.